welcome to our Comics Christmas Award Show! You like my new shirt? Got it for Christmas. It's kind of tight, but I like it. But anyways, yes, welcome to our Comics Christmas Award Show, where we're basically going to tell you all our favorite things from 2011. Now, the fun thing about this episode is it also doubles as our New Year's special. If this is late on Christmas Day, then it kind of works out. So it's only 50% late, not 100%. Trying to be sneaky and sly with that one. But anyways, here are the categories that Carter and I decided to do for this year. Best Overall Series. Best Writer. Best Artist. Worst Overall Series. Best Issue. Worst Issue. Best Limited Series. Best Movie. Worst Movie. Best Live Action Television Show. Best Animated Television Show. And Best Comic Book Video Game. So here's Carter giving you his picks for the best of 2011.
Thank you, Richard, and hello everybody. Welcome to our Christmas special. First, let's start off with the big one, Best Single Issue of the Year. I had a hard time choosing this one, but I decided to go with something that maybe you wouldn't expect from me. It's The Amazing Spider-Man 674. I've never really talked about it that much. I've never given it that much praise like I have other books on the show. But it's just been consistently good. In this story specifically, it was really, really well written, and it involves one of my favorite villains of all time, the Vulture. Yes, I like the Vulture. And Dan Slott writes him and Spider-Man really well, and it was just a lot of fun. And that's something that a lot of comics aren't today, because, you know, being dark and brooding is very, very popular these days. But now, with everything good, there has to be something bad, so we'll go to Worst Single Issue of the Year, which is, sadly, The Savage Hawkman #1. Now, I doubt you've read this, because nobody has. I wouldn't have unless I had not thought Hawkman looked like a pretty cool character. I didn't know anything about him, and so I decided, hey, why not find some new series about some character I don't really know about? It might be fun. Was I wrong. It is mind-numbingly boring. But it's written by Tony S. Daniel, who's doing a fantastic job at Detective Comics, so I don't understand. If you are not already reading this series, continue to not do so, because it really is just a chore to get through. Now, in an interesting category, Best Limited Series. Richard and I are known for reading the big DC comics and Marvel comics, you know, but there are a lot of fun, cool, limited kind of indie comics out there, and one of the best ones of this year was Betrayal of the Planet of the Apes. It's written and drawn, or co-written and drawn by Gabriel Hardman. He's a really, really good writer, and it's a really, really good series. Very interesting art. There's a monkey, or an ape, excuse me. Does not have a tail. It's only 2 issues in, so you have time to catch up. But anyway, I really like it, and I hope you will too. Moving on to Best Artist of the Year, this is just not going to change. It's Ed McGuinness. Then moving on to Best Writer, Scott Snyder. This is a writer who I didn't even really know that much about until Richard told me about his Detective Comics run. And now I'm so glad I found him, because Batman is one of DC's best series to come out of the New 52, if not the best. He's a great guy too, and he and Richard are friends. He did a lot for our show, and sadly it didn't all work out, but he's a really great guy and a really, really great writer. Now, Worst Series of the Year. FF. It's just awful. It really is just, there's nothing exciting about it. It is convoluted as anything. It's ridiculous. It's continuing now that Fantastic Four is going again, but now that Fantastic Four is back, I'm relieved, because I'm gonna follow that series and cancel FF. It is not that good. So now, the biggie. Best Series of the Year. I've already talked about this series in this very episode, The Amazing Spider-Man. No other series has been consistently good. That is really, really awesome of Dan Slott, especially considering how this book comes out not once a month, but once every 2 weeks. I went back and looked at my comics. I keep all my comics, and there was not a single issue I could find that I remember not liking. There are issues that I don't like quite as much, but the majority of them are really, really good. This is a really good series. There's always time to jump on board. He's always going through new arcs and new stories, and so definitely jump on board if you haven't already. This is a really good series. Moving on to some other awards, such as Best Video Game of the Year. We don't even have to talk about it. Arkham City. Get it if you haven't already, and if you haven't uncovered your house. Best Movie. It was a tough one because there were a lot of good ones this year, but a while ago I did come to the conclusion that my favorite comic book movie of the year was Thor. Now on to Best Animated Series. My personal favorite of this year was Avengers: Earth's Mightiest Heroes. Avengers is a really, really entertaining show. It is geared more towards younger kids. I mean, it's a cartoon, but it deals with a lot of the famous Marvel stories that are in the comics. And so it is just a very, very good series, and so you should check it out. And now we're going to close out with a award I didn't even want to talk about because I don't like bringing it back up again. But anyway, worst movie of the year goes to Green Lantern. Okay, we're not talking about it anymore. And so now I'm going to hand it back to Richard. Bye from me. I hope you have a very Merry Christmas. Bye.
Thank you so much, Carter Friend, and Merry Christmas, man. Thank you for your card. But anyways, I have right here my list of picks for best and worst of 2011, so let's get to it. My pick for best video game is Batman Arkham City. No. City? What was that? My pick for best video game of the year is Batman Arkham City. Do I need to explain why I picked this? Best cartoon show for me was Young Justice. Now granted, I didn't really have a lot to pick from as far as DC or Marvel or any kind of cartoon comic book adaptation other than Young Justice, because that was the only one I really watched. So that category is relatively easy for me. Now best live action television show was incredibly easy too. It's The Walking Dead. Now even though the series isn't over yet, it continues in February, what we have so far is amazing. And the collector's edition of the first 6 episodes, season 1, is out. I highly recommend it. Worst comic book movie, without a doubt, was Green Lantern. And like Carter, I don't want to talk about it. It makes me want to shoot myself. So let's go on. Now Carter picked Thor for best comic book movie, and that's a great movie. But this was better. X-Men First Class blew me away. I was excited for it, but this went beyond my expectations. Now on to the actual comic book categories. Now my pick for best limited series was kind of tricky. You know, from Marvel you had Mystery Men, Red Skull Incarnate. Dark Horse you had Hellboy the Fury, which was insanely awesome. But the best one by far was American Vampire Survival of the Fittest. This series was tied to the main American Vampire proper at the time, you know, the Ghost War storyline that was being told. And to be quite honest with you, I thought this was a lot better than Ghost War was. And I love Ghost War. Ghost War was an amazing arc in the series. And the last issue features the best use of the Star Spangled Banner I've ever seen. The worst single issue is sad because it's actually an issue from my all-time favorite series from this year. One of my all-time favorite series. Batman Incorporated number 8 is by definition half a comic. The Grant Morrison half of the series is good. The art half, the Scott Clark half, no. Bad. Bad art. Bad. Chris Burnham, where were you? You could have made this a good issue. Now granted, I probably wouldn't have picked this for worst issue of the year if it wasn't the last issue we would have of Batman Incorporated for 4 months until we finally got the ending we deserved. Best single issue for me was probably the worst category because I could not pick anything. Mainly because I loved so much from this year. There were so many amazing comics out there. But then it finally clicked. The winner for best single issue was Aquaman number 1. Now why is it the best? Because this issue took a character I initially thought was one of the worst creations and made him one of my favorite superheroes, not just from DC but in general. And the best part was Jeff Johns didn't just like change things up about Aquaman to make him a favorite of mine. He is still like old-fashioned Aquaman, just his costume's a little different. Now, worst overall series was incredibly easy for me. Batman The Dark Knight pre-New 52 was probably the worst series I've read all year. The book was always late. The book didn't seem to fit anywhere. I mean, at the time it was being told, it was during the whole Batman Incorporated thing, and it just did not fit in anywhere. It didn't fit within continuity, it just didn't fit anywhere. And the book itself, when the issues came out, had these incredibly arbitrary moments. In all honesty, the only redeeming factor about Batman The Dark Knight is the art's amazing. Now, best artist of the year was another really tricky category, because there was a lot of artists that blew my mind this year, like Sean Murphy, Greg Capullo did some great work this year, Carlos de Anda, Jim Lee, Francesco Francavilla, but there was one artist I just could not get out of my mind, and that was Lee Bermejo. Lee Bermejo's art is always beautiful, and his best work I've ever seen him do was in Batman Noel, his first solo book. Now, best writer was a no-brainer. Scott Snyder's the best writer of the year, people. However, I can't give Scott Snyder 100% of the best writer award. And it's not because he was mean to me or, you know, he wrote a bad issue, but I still blame him. And I blame him because Scott actually introduced me to another writer. Not like personally, he didn't say, oh, you want to meet my friend? No. Like, he introduced me through his work, is what I mean. And the writer that Scott introduced me to was Mr. Jeff Lemire. Jeff Lemire is quickly becoming a favorite of mine, and this year he knocked it out of the park with series like Animal Man and Frankenstein Agent of Shade. So it's a tie! Yay! And now it's time to tell you the best series of 2011 for me. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm talking about Batman the Black Mirror by Scott Snyder, Jack Francesco Francophilia. This is amazing. You know, there's been a lot of amazing Batman stories, but none of them has ever been as good as the Batman classics like Year One or Dark Knight Returns or Long Halloween or Killing Joke. None of them have been. Then this came along and is now one of my favorite Batman stories ever told. So overall, it was completely a no-brainer. This is best Batman book I've read in a very long time. Just as good as stuff like Batman Year One. So yes, best series of the year. There you go. Anyways, guys and gals, thank you guys so much for one hell of a year. You know, we've done so many awesome things, and we've got some of the best people that watch the show. I love meeting new people, and you guys are the best. You really are. Even if you don't send in footage every time I ask. Now, because this is also our New Year's Eve special, we won't be having an episode this weekend. So I guess we won't see you guys till next year. But from Carter and myself, happy holidays. Hope you had a very Merry Christmas. See you guys next year. Bye.